My uncle's voice cut through the dining room like a blade. That house was never yours to keep, sweetheart. I sold it 8 months ago. The room went silent. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Around me, 12 family members stopped chewing, stopped breathing, stopped pretending this was a normal Christmas dinner. "What did you just say?" I asked. Uncle Raymond smiled, that same smug smile he'd worn since I was a little girl, and reached for his wineglass like he hadn't just detonated a bomb in the middle of my life. "Your parents' house, on Maple Ridge. I sold it back in April, got a great price, too. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, hit the like button right now. If you've ever stayed silent while someone underestimated you, comment here, below. And subscribe to Story Retribution, because today's ending proves that karma always arrives, just not when people expect it. My name doesn't matter yet. What matters is what happened at that table, and what happened 3 weeks later when I made sure Uncle Raymond understood exactly what he had done. But let me back up. My parents died in a car accident when I was 22. A drunk driver crossed the median on Route 9 during a rainstorm, and in one instant, I lost both of them. I was in my final year of college, and suddenly I was an orphan with a mountain of grief and a house on Maple Ridge that held every memory I had left of my childhood. Because I was young, and because the estate had some complicated tax matters, my parents' will named my Uncle Raymond, my father's older brother, as executor of the estate and temporary guardian of my affairs until I turned 25. It was supposed to be a formality, a way to make sure bills got paid and taxes got filed while I finished my degree and figured out my life. Uncle Raymond had always seemed like a steady, responsible man. He wore expensive watches and talked about his investments at every family gathering. He had a way of making everyone feel slightly smaller than him, slightly less successful, slightly less deserving. My father used to laugh it off. "That's just Raymond," he'd say. "He needs everyone to know he's doing better than them." After the funeral, Raymond took over everything. Bank accounts, insurance claims, the house. He told me not to worry about any of it. "Focus on school," he said. "I've got this handled." I trusted him. He was family. He was supposed to be protecting me. A year later, I got a scholarship opportunity to study abroad, a graduate program in London that would set up my entire career. Raymond encouraged me to go. "Your parents would be so proud," he told me, hugging me at the airport. "Don't worry about anything back home. I'll keep an eye on the house." I spent 18 months in London. I called home every week. Raymond always had an update. The house was fine, the property taxes were paid, everything was under control. I believed him completely. I came back for that Christmas, exhausted from finals, jet-lagged, and excited to finally go back to Maple Ridge and spend a few days in my childhood home before heading to my aunt's place for the holiday dinner. That's when Raymond dropped the news like it was nothing. "Oh, didn't I mention it? I sold the house in April." I stared at him. "You sold my parents' house? Without telling me?" "I'm the executor," he said, shrugging like this explained everything. I had the authority. I made a decision that was best for the estate. That house wasn't part of some estate decision, Raymond. That was my home. That was supposed to be mine when I turned 25. He waved his hand like he was swatting away a fly. "You were in London playing student. Someone had to be practical. The market was hot. I got a fantastic price." My Aunt Denise, sitting beside him, looked uncomfortable but said nothing. My cousin Trevor smirked into his mashed potatoes. Nobody at that table defended me. Nobody said a word. "Where's the money from the sale?" I asked, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking under the table. "It's being handled," Raymond said. "Estate expenses, fees, taxes. You'll get whatever's left when everything's settled. Show me the paperwork." His jaw tightened for just a second before the smile came back. "You don't need to worry about paperwork, sweetheart. Just enjoy your dinner." Sweetheart. He always called me that when he wanted to make me feel small, like a child who couldn't possibly understand grown-up business. I have every right to see the sale documents, I said. That was my parents' house, my inheritance. Raymond leaned back in his chair, and for the first time that night, his mask slipped just slightly. You didn't have any right to that property while I was executor. The will gave me full authority to manage the estate as I saw fit. That included selling assets if necessary. Necessary for what? For the good of the family, he said, and something in the way he said it made my stomach turn cold. I looked around the table. My grandmother, sitting quietly at the far end, wouldn't meet my eyes. My Aunt Denise suddenly found her napkin fascinating. Trevor was still smirking. Did everyone know about this? I asked. Silence. Did everyone know he sold my parents' house and didn't tell me? More silence. That silence told me everything. They knew. They'd known for months, and not one of them had picked up the phone to warn me. You should be grateful, Raymond finally said. I handled everything so you didn't have to deal with the stress. You were busy with your fancy program in London. This was adult business. I felt something shift inside me. Not rage, not yet. Something colder and more focused. The kind of feeling that comes right before you stop being surprised and start paying attention. Who bought it? I asked calmly. Does it matter? Who bought it, Raymond? He hesitated, then said, A young family. Nice people. They're renovating it now. I nodded slowly, set my fork down, and said the only thing I could manage in that moment. Excuse me. I walked out of that dinner without raising my voice, without crying, without giving him the satisfaction of watching me fall apart. I could feel his eyes following me, probably assuming I was too weak to fight back, assuming this was the end of it. He had no idea what I was about to do. I drove straight to a hotel that night instead of going back to my aunt's guest room. I sat on the edge of the bed and made a list. Not a list of things to say to Raymond, a list of things to find. The next morning I called my parents' old lawyer, Mr. Whitfield, a man who had handled their estate planning for 15 years before they passed. He remembered me immediately. I was actually surprised I never heard from you about the house, he said carefully. Raymond told me you'd been informed and that you agreed to the sale. My blood ran cold. I never agreed to anything. I never even knew about it until last night. There was a long pause on the line. That's concerning. Let me pull the file. 2 days later, Mr. Whitfield called me back, and his voice had changed completely. It was sharp now, alarmed. I need you to come into my office, he said. There's something wrong with the power of attorney document Raymond used to authorize the sale. I sat across from him an hour later while he spread documents across his desk. This power of attorney, he said, tapping a page, is dated 3 months before your parents passed away. It supposedly gives Raymond authority over property transactions on your behalf, signed by you. I never signed that, I said. I was in my dorm room during finals when that date says I signed it. I have my class schedule. I have security footage from my building if it still exists. I have text messages proving I was 300 miles away. Mr. Whitfield studied the signature carefully, then pulled out an old document from my file. A signature card from years earlier when my parents had opened a savings account for me. He placed them side by side. This isn't your signature, he said quietly. It's close, but it's not yours. Look at the way the letter S curves here versus here. My hands trembled as I stared at the two signatures. He was right. It was a forgery. A good one. Good enough to fool a bank clerk or a real estate agent moving quickly through paperwork, but not good enough to survive real scrutiny. He forged my signature, I whispered. It certainly appears that way, Mr. Whitfield said. And using a forged power of attorney to sell real estate is not just unethical, it's a serious crime. I felt the cold, focused feeling from Christmas dinner return, stronger this time. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was fraud. And Raymond had done it while I was overseas, powerless, trusting him completely. I want to know everything, I said. The real estate agent, the buyers, the bank, all of it. Over the following 2 weeks, I built a case with the quiet, methodical patience of someone who had learned that revenge doesn't come from screaming, it comes from preparation. I tracked down the real estate agent who had handled the sale, a woman named Carla Jennings. When I called her and explained the situation, her tone shifted from professional politeness to genuine unease. "I remember that sale," she said. "It moved incredibly fast. Mr. Raymond insisted on rushing everything through. He kept saying the beneficiary, that was you, was abroad, and had already signed off on everything remotely. He had a notarized power of attorney, so I didn't have reason to question it. Did you ever speak to me directly? Did you ever try to verify anything with me?" "No," she admitted. "He specifically said you didn't want to be bothered with the details because of your studies. He said you trusted him completely and wanted him to just handle it." "Would you be willing to put that in writing?" I asked. "Everything you just told me?" There was a pause. "Given what you're describing, yes, I would. Actually, I think I should. If that power of attorney was forged, I could be liable for not catching it, and I want to protect myself by being fully transparent about what he told me." That was the first crack in Raymond's foundation. His own agent, the person he'd manipulated to move quickly, was now willing to testify against him to protect herself. Next, I pulled bank records with Mr. Whitfield's help, since as the rightful beneficiary, I had legal standing to request an accounting of the estate. The sale had gone through for $420,000. Estate expenses, even generously calculated, could not account for more than $60,000 of that. Where had the rest gone? It took another week of digging, but eventually we found it. Raymond had used a significant portion of the proceeds to pay off his own business debts, a struggling investment firm he'd started 2 years earlier that was quietly hemorrhaging money. He had used my inheritance, secured through a forged document, to bail out his failing business. I sat with that information for a long time. Not with tears, with something steadier, something that felt almost like clarity. I didn't call Raymond. I didn't confront him over the phone. I didn't give him any warning at all. Instead, I let 3 weeks pass. I let him believe that Christmas dinner had been the end of it, that I'd walked away defeated, too overwhelmed to fight back, exactly the way he'd always assumed I would be. My grandmother's 90th birthday party was coming up. The entire family would be there, the same people who had sat silently at that Christmas table while Raymond humiliated me, the same people who had known for months and said nothing. I decided that party would be the place where the truth came out. I met with a lawyer, not just Mr. Whitfield, but a litigation attorney named Sandra Kwan, who specialized in estate fraud. Together, we assembled everything: the original deed to the house with my parents' names on it, the forged power of attorney with a forensic handwriting analysis proving it wasn't my signature, Carla Jennings's written statement confirming Raymond had lied about my involvement, and the bank records tracing the money directly into his failing business accounts. Sandra prepared a formal legal packet, but more importantly, she helped me plan exactly how I would present the truth in a way that would leave absolutely no room for Raymond to spin his way out. The night before the party, my grandmother called me. Her voice was frail but sharp. "I need to tell you something," she said. "I should have told you at Christmas. I was afraid of Raymond's temper, and I'm ashamed of that. Denise and I both had suspicions about that sale months ago. We saw papers we shouldn't have seen. We didn't say anything because we were scared of what Raymond might do if we crossed him." "I understand," I said, and I meant it. Fear does strange things to people. But understanding wasn't the same as forgiving the silence. "Tomorrow," my grandmother said, "if you need to say something, say it. I'll stand behind you. So will Denise." That was the one supporter switching sides. The moment the family's silent complicity began to crack. The night of the party arrived. The banquet hall was decorated beautifully, string lights hanging from the ceiling. Nearly 40 family members and friends gathered to celebrate 90 years of my grandmother's life. Raymond arrived in a tailored suit, working the room with his usual confidence, laughing loudly, shaking hands, playing the successful businessman he desperately wanted everyone to believe he still was. I waited until after dinner, after the toasts, after the cake had been cut. I waited until the room was warm and relaxed, and full of people who thought the hardest part of the evening was behind them. Then I stood up, holding a manila envelope in my hands. "Before we finish the evening," I said, my voice calm and clear, "I need to say something. It's about the house on Maple Ridge." Raymond's smile faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. "Sweetheart, is this really the time?" "It's exactly the time," I said. "Since you brought it up so publicly at Christmas, I think everyone deserves to hear the rest of the story." The room quieted. Forks stopped clinking against plates. "At Christmas," I continued, "my uncle told all of you that he sold my parents' house because he had, and I quote, full authority as executor. He said I'd been informed. He said I agreed to it." "Because you did," Raymond said, his voice tightening. "Did I?" I asked. I opened the envelope and pulled out the first document. "This is the power of attorney my uncle used to authorize that sale. It's dated April 14th, 3 years ago. According to this document, I personally signed this in his presence." I held it up. "The problem is, on April 14th, 3 years ago, I was 300 miles away, sitting in a final exam for organic chemistry. I have my class schedule. I have my dormitory access logs. I have text messages I sent that day, complaining about the exam." Murmurs spread through the room. "But don't take my word for it," I continued. "This is a forensic handwriting analysis comparing my actual signature to the one on this document. Every expert who reviewed it confirmed the same thing. This signature is not mine." I passed copies down the table. My grandmother, exactly as she'd promised, spoke up firmly. "I want everyone to look at this carefully." Raymond's face had gone pale, but he tried one more angle. "Handwriting can look different depending on circumstances. This is ridiculous. You're trying to embarrass me in front of the entire family." "You embarrassed yourself at Christmas dinner," I said. "I'm simply finishing the conversation you started." I pulled out the second document. This is a written statement from Carla Jennings, the real estate agent who handled the sale. She states clearly that my uncle told her I had already agreed to the transaction remotely and didn't want to be bothered with the details. She never spoke to me directly because he made sure that never happened. Someone near the back of the room said, "Wait, what?" "And this," I said, pulling out the final document, "is a breakdown of where the $420,000 from that sale actually went. $60,000 went to legitimate estate expenses. The remaining $360,000 went directly into accounts belonging to Raymond's investment firm, the same firm that was quietly failing and buried in debt." The room had gone completely silent. Raymond stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is a private family matter. This doesn't need to happen here." "You made it a public matter," I said, my voice still calm. "When you announced at Christmas dinner, in front of everyone, that I had no right to that house. You wanted an audience then. So now you have one." He looked around the room, searching for support, searching for someone to back him up the way they always had. But this time, no one moved. My Aunt Denise looked down at her plate. Trevor, who had smirked at Christmas, now stared at the tablecloth like it held all the answers. "Read page 3, I said, sliding the folder toward him. "It's the forensic analyst's signed statement. Go ahead, read it out loud, if you'd like everyone to hear it from you instead of me." He didn't move. "Tell everyone," I said. Tell them what you did with my parents' money." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His hands trembled as he stared down at the documents in front of him. The deed, the forged signature, the statement, the bank trail. All of it laid bare under the string lights of a party meant to celebrate life, not expose fraud. "I'm listening," I said quietly. Still nothing. His face had gone from pale to almost gray. His jaw worked silently, like a man trying to remember how speech functioned. My grandmother spoke into the silence, her voice trembling but firm. "Raymond, is this true?" He looked at her, then at me, then at the room full of people who had once respected him, admired his success, envied his confidence. Every version of himself he'd built over the years was dissolving in real time. "I was going to pay it back," he finally whispered. "The business just needed time. I was going to fix it before anyone found out." "You stole from your dead brother's daughter," my grandmother said, her voice breaking. "You forged her signature. You lied to all of us for years." Denise finally looked up, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she said to me. "I should have said something months ago. I was afraid of him. That's not an excuse. I'm sorry." Raymond stood frozen at the head of the table, unable to defend himself, unable to explain, unable to do anything except absorb the collapse of everything he had built on lies. I closed the folder gently. "My lawyer already has copies of everything," I said. "The original deed, the forged power of attorney, the forensic analysis, Carla Jennings's statement, the financial records. This isn't just a family disagreement anymore. It's a legal matter, and it will be handled accordingly." I looked at my grandmother. "I'm sorry this happened at your birthday. You deserved a peaceful celebration." "You did exactly what you needed to do," she said, reaching for my hand. "I'm proud of you." I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I simply picked up my coat, thanked the people who had shown me kindness that night, and walked out of that banquet hall with my head high and my hands steady. Behind me, I could hear Raymond's voice finally breaking the silence, not with excuses, but with the quiet, defeated sound of a man realizing there was nothing left to say. The legal case moved forward in the following months. Faced with overwhelming evidence, the forged document, the real estate agent's testimony, the financial trail leading straight into his failing business, Raymond had no path forward except to settle. He was forced to return the full value of the house with interest, and he lost his position as executor of any remaining family matters. His investment firm collapsed entirely under the weight of its own debts, and the scandal that followed once word spread through our small community about what he'd done. He was never invited to another family gathering, not because anyone banned him, but because he simply stopped showing up, unable to face the people who now knew exactly who he really was. I used the settlement to buy back a piece of land near where the original house had stood, and eventually, I built something new there. Smaller, but entirely mine, built on truth instead of lies. My grandmother and I grew closer after that night. My Aunt Denise reached out regularly, trying to rebuild trust that had been broken by her silence. Some relationships healed slowly, others never did. But I learned something important through the entire ordeal. Family isn't defined by blood or by the authority someone claims over your life. It's defined by honesty, by loyalty, by the people who stand beside you when it matters most, not the ones who stay silent while someone tramples over you and calls it necessary. Raymond thought that because I was young, because I was abroad, because I stayed calm instead of screaming, that I would simply accept whatever he decided for me. He mistook my composure for weakness. He mistook my patience for surrender. He learned, in front of everyone who mattered, that calm isn't weakness. Sometimes calm is just the quiet before the truth arrives exactly when it's supposed to. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button right now. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my situation? If you enjoy stories about family betrayal, emotional drama, shocking revenge, and the justice that always finds its way back, subscribe to Story Retribution and turn on the bell so you never miss the next story. Tomorrow's story might be even more unbelievable. See you then.